festival. You are listening to SGFR, podcast radio for the festival. Now broadcasting highlights and top picks, your tasty, tantalizing tease for this coming year.
It's a pleasure to have Len join us here in the interview suite.
I'm alive.
Len, you're here.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Len. Great to have you here in the interview suite. Why are you here?
I'm here because Andy, I think, wanted more padding, and there's one game I played the last Strange Games Festival, which I thought was a success. I think other people quite liked it as well, so I'm here to spread the gospel of Icarus. I'm not sponsored by them.
What is the gospel of Icarus for someone like me who is an idiot?
Bless you, you're not.
Basically, Icarus is just a little, very short RPG game, a couple of hours long, and the whole premise is together you collaboratively create a city called Icarus, and then over the course of the game, Icarus gets hit by more and more kind of escalating conflicts and issues until eventually it collapses, and then you tell the story of how it collapses and what happens. So you have individual characters, and the characters are sort of loosely associated with things like education or diplomacy or whatever like that. But a lot of it is you get to invent your characters. So say you had like you drew a card and says, okay, you're in charge of education. You could be the chief of education in Icarus, or you could be the primary school teacher or teaching assistant. And then you could just invent a little bit of a backstory about your character. Backstory does not matter at all. And Icarus itself, as a city, you make up entirely from scratch as well. So it could be a floating cloud city. It could be underground desert. It could be anything. Doesn't matter. It's still going to get hit with a load of. The other kind of twist in it is that one player. Everyone will have kind of motives. So, for example, you might be like, you want to accumulate lots of money, or you might want to accumulate power. And one player, their role would be they want to see Icarus fall. So they will be working in the confines of the game. So they won't be trying to break the game, but they'll be trying to break the city, like sabotage and all the rest of it. And their goal is to basically destroy Icarus.
Does everyone know who that person is, or is it like a social deduction style thing?
No, I think they. Good question. Gosh, it's been a year since I played. I think everybody knows.
Yeah, I seem to remember having played it a couple of times that people do know that people have agendas, and some of them can be. Yeah.
Yeah. So your choice of like education or finance or something like that is that's my choice, but your motive is hidden.
Okay, awesome.
And yeah, it looks like it's all up.
Now, I've never played Icarus, but correct me if I'm wrong, that a kind of one of the game mechanics is stacking dice. Is that right?
It is, yes.
I just want to be very clear. I didn't know that off the top of my head. I Googled it whilst you were speaking.
So, yeah, you basically, the whole idea was Icarus is already an established city. You're kind of creating it as you're playing. But in the world, it's an established city. But what the people of Icarus are doing, and to be honest, we quite often forget about this element. But the dice represent a monument that you're producing at the start of the game, and you're trying to build this monument in honor of this wonderful, everlasting, never to be destroyed city called Icarus. And as you stack the dice, once you drop the dice, you can't like shift a finger again. So you have to kind of like just leave it where it is, and that can end up with some really interesting precarious towers. Like some of them go up quite high. And the idea is when the dice fall, doesn't matter where you are in the game, that's it. Game's over, and you have to kind of basically collaboratively tell the end story of how suddenly Icarus just collapsed, or maybe it was an ongoing like gradual decay.
Yeah, I think of it as a kind of reverse Jenga device, which we become quite invested in as each person meets a criteria that allows them or forces them to put a die on top of the tower. But it's the collaborative. It's basically an act of joint storytelling, isn't it?
It is. So what I like about it is you do draw cards for like different kind of crises, and they kind of go from sort of like not so bad to kind of catastrophic.
Yeah.
But when whoever draws a card, you then kind of you chat about it. You don't just say, "Okay, I'm doing this," and then move on. I mean, you could do that, but that's kind of boring. So what happens is tends to be that people throw in ideas, throw up ideas, and it just it's very organic because the 3D is just whatever is the better story. So, for example, I'll give you a couple of. This is an example of a scenario from a lower first tier disaster. So it says the cracks in our facade. An existing weakness or problem has started to affect another aspect in the city. What major issue within the community is it creating? And so together, based on whatever you've decided Icarus can be now. Icarus, in one of the last games of the Stranger Games Festival, Icarus was an apple tree. So it was a city of squirrels based in an apple tree. And so I think, that we had like incoming hornets and stuff like that. So it's entirely just whatever works. And surprisingly, things, yeah.
It sounds great. I love collaborative storytelling games like this. When you're playing this at Strange Games, do you do it like outside, or do you try and find an inside place? Because I imagine the wind might sabotage your dice tower.
So we were very lucky to have the RPG swamp last year, so we played there.
The RPG swamp, did you call it?
Relatively sheltered. Yeah,
that was accurate. Yeah,
So it got hit by a little bit of rain, but apart from that, it was very very sheltered. And so we were actually I played I think all games. I think I played 3 games last year.
Yeah.
Two of them were planned. One of them was a very drunken late night one.
Good.
Which didn't quite get finished. But no, we were actually okay with the wind. But yeah, I think if it was kind of rough conditions, we probably would go indoors. And we just kind of coordinated everything by Discord. So I did like a sort of, it's a thing where you kind of post up and say, hey, I think I'm running this game. And then people sign up, and then you kind of like work out when everyone's free and what works for people. But yeah, it's surprising. And then what you need is, as well as the basic game itself, is you need some paper and you need some pens as well. So I ended up going to the Scout camping shop and picking up a load of pens. So I've got those. Yeah.
Now, I have it in my head that it kind of stands out from other RPGs as instead of character-based, although there are characters in it, we're talking about the rise and fall of civilization.
Sort of, yeah. Like, yeah. So every card kind of it's never really focused about your character. It's always focused about the city itself, and your character is always just like a sort of something that's clinging onto the city. So you kind of like say what your character does, and it'll usually be kind of in line with your motives. So it might be like you're in education, but your motive is to get rich. So if that was your motive, then say you pulled a card and says like, oh, all is not what it seems. Something that's now once a strength is now a weakness. Then, and then you'd say, what is it, and why did it change so quickly? And so you'd have a conversation, but then you'd also say, what does your character do? And in your character, right? Well, I robbed the school coffers, and I squirreled it all under my bed, preparing to make an escape, getaway. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of keep on adding to it, and it gets sillier and sillier. Like I mean, it's hard to kind of describe without kind of playing like a run through it. But I picked up some piece of paper from last games. So one of the nice things about this is you sort of create almost like a mind map as you go along to kind of keep yourself kind of remind yourself as to what story already kind of exists and what decisions have already been made. So, and then of course they sort of live in the bottom of the box. So I'll give you a quick one through about ones that have existed for the past. So sign language instead of speech, punishment, chopping hands off. Okay, that was quite a violent one. But these are just like the nibblers, semi-mythical creatures that swim below the surface of the diamond sand. I mean, that stuff's quite poetic. Yeah, so the game's you end up with this like really random, growing kind of worlds, and then your characters just sort of exist amongst it. But there's you're not like you kind of it's not like a quest where you're a bard and a paladin and a warrior. You're not going to like stomp on a goblin or something like that. It's all just whatever tells the better story, really.
It sounds like it can be quite poetic and quite beautiful, alongside being occasionally just plain silly. I'm curious, is there a win condition? Can anyone leave there thinking, I have won?
No, Icarus will always fall.
But I guess you can make sure you have achieved your motives, I guess.
Well, you can. I mean, if you feel you've achieved your motives, then you feel you've achieved your motives.
I guess, like many of these games, the winning Andy is telling a very good story. It sounds similar in to I don't know if you've played The Quiet Year, where it's all about the collapse of civilization, and you kind of tell the story together. But that is more with a deck of cards. But it sounds similar in terms of themes to that.
It might be actually. Yeah, I've not played that. That sounds interesting. I mean, I love a good dystopian apocalyptic kind of game.
I'm saying the quiet year, and everyone went, "Oh, no idea, James, probably." So that's fair.
I mean, that's the key, isn't it? It's the dystopic story of collapse and ruin. And, what festival, what camp out is not complete without some kind of collapse of all civilization and hope?
There is an element at Strange Games where you kind of do feel like civilization could have collapsed outside of this little campsite, and you just don't know.
Yeah. There were your little camping stoves and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of bunch of preppers in disguise. Is that what we're saying?
Mind you, but there was a massive queue to the food van. If you had an apocalypse with pancakes, crepes.
If there was an apocalypse, crepes is what I would hope for my apocalypse food.
I did hear, by the way, that we will have catering at the camp out as well. And if Laura's available, will we have crepes as well this
I
July?
believe so. It's a bit early in the year to be making absolute promises, but I'm pretty
Let's promise everyone everything.
sure they were interested. I think it's likely.
So maybe that's a necessary food for the end of civilization, otherwise known as Icarus. Maybe mandatory survival food are crepes, and bring a sense of desolation and abandon all hope before you join.
Yeah, but it could be, every ending is a new beginning. So it doesn't have to. Nobody leaves the table crying. It's not like anything. Yeah.
It's not like 10 Candles.
Exactly. You don't you need therapy afterwards. It's you feel sad. You feel satisfied that the city deserved what it got, basically.
I'm beginning to wonder whether we need to set up a therapy booth at the campsite and the festival.
Let's not do that, Andy. I'd never be out of it.
Well, I was thinking that you could be. We could team tag. We could both be therapists and take turns.
You think, Andy, that you and me have the capacity to administer therapy to between 200 and 500 nerds?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, no one says it has to be good. We could be dispensing very bad therapy, but we could do it.
I feel like it would be like a supply and demand thing where we create the need for therapy and then they can go next door for the actual
next
therapy.
Door? What's next door?
Yeah, an actual therapist.
Well, so we engage an actual therapist. Laura, can we engage an actual therapist to undo the damage that James and I would do?
I think that would take more than the time of the festival to achieve.
Fair. That's you got it. Yeah.
I was going to say, what about priests? Given how many of these games have like supernatural elements, maybe you just need like just a quick kind of holy water splash, and then you're on your way.
You think we should have like a confession booth instead of a therapy booth?
Ooh.
Oh, bless me, Father, for I have cheated. Can you imagine? There'd be like scandal. No one would do it.
We could make it kind of multi-denominational. So bless me, higher power, for I have omitted to mention that I'm a traitor.
Have Simon. Simon could be the higher power. He could be.
Just make an effigy of Simon in the
booth.
I don't think that would go down at all well.
We can throw it on a bonfire.
It makes taking selfies for traitors easier.
Oh yeah.
Len, I wanted to thank you. Icarus, which I have played a couple of times, which you've led, is a kind of glorious shared storytelling, ponderous, wondrous, fun, sometimes hysterical, sometimes really thought-provoking experience. So will you be at the camp out? Do you know yet?
I'm definitely down for the festival, and I'm not sure about the camp out just yet because I'm not sure what my plans are around that time of year.
Well,
but hard thing thinking about it though. I mean, I do like good old-fashioned camping. I like.
Well, the chances are there. So I commend Icarus to you. And I know Len will be, if she's there, she'll possibly quite likely be looking to run the game again. So watch out. Watch Discord, I guess, and other spaces for the possibility of playing that.
And also, I don't have Monopoly on the game. So, it's if you want to go on Amazon and buy your own copy, please do feel free to pay.
True.
Buy it yourself.
True. Right. How are we going to round off this episode? James, would you like to do the outro, the kind of end comment, or just should we just peter out?
Is this comment meant to be like thanks so much for coming kind of comment, or like a James's final thought?
An inspirational thought for the day.
Yeah, is it a Jeremy Springer thing? Like nobody wins when.
Well, we come to Strange Games Camp where nobody wins.
And you'll need therapy.
Yeah, no. Thank you so much for coming and listening to us today. We hope to see you at Strange Games, where Andy and I will set up our therapy
Booth.
where we can increase your need for therapy overnight.
I'd like to do it. I'd like to do a kind of Lucy Van Pelt Peanuts featuring Charlie Brown type therapy booth. And we can have a sign that says the therapist is in.
What about a Jerry Springer thing instead, where you get like any board game disputes, and you have like people sitting on a row of chairs on the stage, and like Simon interviews them and goes, so your character did this.
Like a Judge Judy type thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can we fix the DNA test?
Everyone has to be in character on the stage though, so you have to act like you're bored. If it's an RPG or whatever.
I do like the idea of Simon having like robes. Like he does have the robe already, but we get him like one of those wigs and a gavel.
A gavel. I mean, he's got a honking horn, but a gavel.
That's too much power.
Right, as you see, this is how civilization ends, by the way. And what in a way we've had there is an example of the type of free-flowing catastrophe that occasionally occurs in Icarus, which I think is a brilliant way of bringing this episode to a close.
Not with a bang.
With a whimper. With a melting of waxen wings.
With a small fizzle.
You've been listening to SGFR, the podcast radio channel for the Strange Games Festival.
This season's hosts have been James, Laura, Andy and Craig.
And if you'd like to come on the show, message us on the festival radio channel on the Strange Games Festival Discord server.